Far too often, LGBTQ plus business owners believe they have to choose between authenticity and being successful. Through these real-life stories, LGBTQ plus listeners aspiring for success can gain valuable insights to navigate their path to being both queer and successful. Hello, everyone. It is me, Hunter J. McNair, your hostess with the mostest, back again for this week's episode of Queer and Successful. Y'all, we have big news. Queer and Successful, the podcast, will now be recorded live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern for you, the listener, to participate in. When you go to successfulcall.com, you'll be registered to participate in the calls. You'll actually hear me interview live with our guests for the first 30 to 45 minutes of the call. And then you and your friends will be able to participate in a live Q&A. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity that I'm super excited about bringing you all into. And if you haven't yet, join Queer and Successful, the community on Facebook. We're doing really fun things over there. Now, without further ado, I want you to listen to my good Judy, my good pal, Julia Lashay, where me and her talk about building a big business through community and connections. Take a listen. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the first ever Queer and Successful weekly mastermind call. As a reminder, please stay muted throughout the call. We do have Joshua on the line who works for me, who's going to be making sure you all stay quiet and letting in guests as they come on. We actually have 173 people who are registered for this call, so I know they'll be trickling in. Today, I am joined with one of my good Judies, Julia Lashay.
Wait, what's a Judy, and do I want to be one?
Yes, I thought we had this conversation about a good Judy.
No.
Don't you remember? Okay, so history lesson, queer history lesson, okay. Right? So Judy Garland was a gay icon. And so back in the day, oh, there's a cat. Back in the day, a way that we would describe people who were in support of our community, we would call them good Judys.
Oh, I'm a good Judy, yes.
Yes, you are. You are a good Judy. So you are an ally, advocate, business mogul, as I've said, leader of the head of inclusion and belonging for a company of 170,000 agents, something like that across the globe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. You've been in business for 28 years?
I've been selling real estate for 25.
25.
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did some research. I told you.
You did. But you haven't told me what else you've discovered yet, so I'm kind of scared.
We're going to go all back to elementary school. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that much research. But this picture, no, I'm kidding. Can you imagine?
No. Yeah.
Can you honestly imagine if I had a picture of you, like, ready to go? Like, explain.
Hey, they're out there. There are some out there that I hope never surface, ever. Yeah.
I truly should have done that. But no, I researched from when you started business. So you're lucky. We'll save that for the next time.
It was also elementary school.
Yeah, well, yeah, which was also elementary school. Exactly. So for people who don't know who you are, do your little intro. Introduce who you are.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the first episode of the Queer and Successful. Such an honor to be a good Judy and to be a guest here for you. I'm so excited to speak with all of you. And so I just thank you for considering me. I'm Julia Lashay. I am the head of inclusion and belonging for KWRI, the world's largest real estate franchise. And I have been with KW for 20 of my 25 years. I have served in a number of capacities in all the roles. An agent, I have a team. I still have a team. I did everything except for be the team leader. Really, I was kind of the team leader. We didn't call it that. But I was all kinds of things. And now I'm currently the OP of the Minneapolis, Minnesota Market Center. And just honored to be here to share this time with you all. Thank you all for logging in. You are in for something super special.
Very special. And also now a TEDx speaker.
That as well. I did that. That's the thing I did.
You got to check that box off because you fought hard for that.
I did that. The internet, the second I went and spoke in France one time, I immediately, I was on the plane back and changed my profile, international speaker. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
You got to be doing that though. Yeah. Well, today you and I are going to be talking about something that I think, I would give my pat on my own back of saying I'm part of this club of building a business through community and connections.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We've been doing this for a hot second, focusing on, one could say, a niche or a subcategory of society. And you started at a young age of 18 getting your real estate license. And I know that you actually sold homes before you kind of ran or got into the MCA role, a market center administrative role later. So share what that was like when you first turned 18.
I got my license because in high school, you take those little career assessments and it said I should be a property manager. So in Minnesota, you have to have a real estate license to be a property manager. So I went to real estate school, but when I was in there, I'm like, this sounds way better what they're talking about than being a property manager, especially since I was living in an apartment and I called about every little thing. And I was like, I don't want to deal with me, right? So I got my license. The thing was, of course, being young, I bought my first house. Actually, I was my first client. I bought my first house when I was 18. I was my own client. That's a whole nother podcast episode, a whole nother story of what not to do. But after that, I was working at a call center, and there's hundreds of people in a call center, right? So the girl next to me, she was like, I want to buy a house. And I was like, I totally know how to do that. So she was my next client, and then she referred me to her aunt. And then the guy on the other side of the cubicle, his name was Joe. Joe wanted to buy a house, and then he bought a house, and then his uncle bought a house. And then for 13 years after that, I served first-time home buyers because that was my niche, was people who were like me, or, and like me could be anything from just broke like me, but wanted to buy a house. That's what I did. I get broke young people like me to buy a house. And so I did that for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, making that decision, I'm sure there are people in here who are like, I started young, I'm nervous about, taking that step. I mean, what was the decision to be like, I'm just going to go head into it and I'm not going to think twice?
Right. I obviously work at the call center. I was dual career, and that's where I got a lot of my clients from. But I remember explicitly, I tried to put in for a time off request and they told me no. And that's what it was, Hunter. I was like, you can't tell me what to do. I sell houses. I'll quit this place.
Right.
And then I quit. And I decided that I was going to sell houses because I didn't want them telling me where I could go and when I could go there and how long I could stay. We literally had to track how long we were in the bathroom. I don't want to do any of this. I quit. Yeah. And I just made the decision that I wanted a different life. Yeah.
You a rebel? I never would have thought. Never would have assumed that. You and I, we're like perfect angels. We follow all the rules. Yeah. All the rules. We show up at 9 o'clock when someone tells us to be there, right? We're like totally
I do my best.
Yeah. Now, can you share a moment in your career when community and relationships have played a major role in what you would define as success?
Well, I'm glad you said that, what you would define, because success can be measured in so many different ways.
Yes.
But I think what the question means is a defining moment. And I think all of us, that's what this is. The real estate business is simply a business of relationships. That's all it is. We are in a relationship business, and it's just one relationship after another, no matter what your role in real estate is, that's what it is. And so in order to have any success, are you still there? I dropped my thing.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. In order to have any success, you have to understand relationships and how to be in a relationship. One of the things that I think in regards to communities, I've found to be not necessarily a success for me, but I would say a success for KW at large, is communities and affinity groups. And so if you're familiar, KW has communities like land and luxury and KW wellness and so on and so forth. I think the formation of those communities is great, but I think even more so what we've created internally inside of the inclusion and belonging community were all of the affinity groups.
Right.
Giving people a space. Now, there was many before I came. Rainbow Network existed long before I had that role, right? KW Black Real Estate Network existed long before I had that role. I think there were probably like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But now there's 12. I think we just added a new one, which would make it 13. And the reason that's successful, I say, for KW at large is because having some place where you belong, having a community, your people, finding your people, whatever that means, fill in the blank, people who are like-minded or people, I mean, if you're at KW, you found your people, right? In general, we're like-minded. But then there are people who have certain shared experiences and shared, struggles and challenges and barriers and want some space to overcome that and get the tools and resources you need to thrive in any capacity you choose. And I believe that affinity groups do that. And so increasing those, I think, would be, I would say, is for me, it has been a true success in seeing people really find some place where they enjoy and feel like themselves and belong and can thrive.
Right. And you've said in the past, like, belonging is one of the biggest things and drives for people as a society, right? That feeling of
basic, fundamental human need. Yeah.
Truly. And we've talked about in the past, my history with the Keller Williams Rainbow Network, because 20 years ago, I was not old enough to lead the Rainbow Network. And when I came into running all of our events for the Rainbow Network, people don't realize that started because of my own desire for belonging.
Yeah.
Right. It was my desire to exist in a space where I could be around people who were struggling with the same things I was struggling with.
Yeah.
To learn from people who understood where I was coming from. And now it's obviously growing outside of real estate into a world where we can bring our clients, our people outside of the real estate world, entrepreneurs, queer youth can come into a space and hear from like-minded people who are doing great things like yourself. Now,
I just want to add to what you just said there. I want to make sure all of the affinity groups are exactly what you just did. They're agent-led. There are agents that say, I want to belong somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and create that. And it's just simply supported by KW. So KWR did not create any of these groups. There was somebody just like you that said, I want to create a space where people can feel like they belong. And it's just supported by. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, like, if you want something, create it. It's like, stop waiting around for someone to make things what you want. Just go and do it. It's easier said than done, right? There's a lot of faith over fear on that one. I think the first Rainbow Mastermind that we did years ago, not to dive too into that, was 45 people in a basement of New Orleans, right? And I shared with you before the call in New Orleans, I shared with you before the call that, it was one of those like moments where it's like, I knew this was going to be a thing for that group. And it has become a lot, and Queer and Successful, of course, is going to be a lot as well, because I'm a lot and it tracks. So in today's world, right, networking and getting in front of people, for some people can feel like it's just transactional. I think people maybe get afraid that they're just having transactional relationships. How do you go about building genuine and lasting connections that kind of go beyond the surface level? Like, what's your advice there?
I think it's a depth over quantity thing. For a lot of us, we feel like I have to go and build a relationship with absolutely everybody, right? And that's near impossible to do. Versus who are some core people that I want to build really meaningful relationships with, and you nurture those meaningful relationships. Versus trying to just have a surface relationship with everybody, you build a core community, right? Of people that you can really get deep with and nurture those meaningful communications, ask questions, lead with curiosity, right? Tell me more about you. We also talked about us running all over family reunion.
Yes, sure.
It was like, and for me, a lot, it was a lot. And I received some feedback from a couple of our agents that they didn't feel like my interactions with them were deep enough. You know? And it's like, well, that would have been a lot easier if there was 20 people or even 200 people or even 2,000 people. But with tens of thousands of people, it was very hard to get deep. But that's what people desire. And that's what people want for a connection, is for you to spend that kind of depth with them and not just say, hey, 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 everybody, but actually have some meaningful relationship with them.
I'll tell you, that's hard. It's so hard. It is like, just it's difficult the more relationships that you build and the more people you get in front of, and you always want to give people the time that they need. And I think that's it just comes with kind of that leadership as well that you have. It kind of comes with the territory where you're going to be spread thin a little bit. And I think it's a good call to action to have, for us to have grace for ourselves as well in that. So I would just add and say, make your lasting connections. Always just be aware of, if, someone does have those feelings, and check in with yourself. And as I told you before this call, like as RuPaul says, well, I'm going to add a different quote. I'm going to say, unless they're paying my bills, I'm going to pay them no mind. I changed my quote from earlier. I'm going to change to that RuPaul reference.
I can't say them. Some of them are paying my bills.
Some of them are paying your bill. That's okay. That's okay. Now, when someone's like, hey, how do I start building a business through community and connection? What's the first step? Like, you're like, say we're at point zero, right? I know how I started to do it. How did you start to do it?
I think the first thing is to understand what your purpose is. It's kind of like that start with why. What is your mission? What are you about? Like, when I first started selling houses, I was able to build community around who my clients were, or a lot of communities, because I had a mission. I helped people get into home ownership. I helped first-time home buyers. And there was a whole mission behind helping people who were marginalized or who historically had barriers get into home ownership. That was my mission. And so it became very easy to be engaged in communities or attract other communities who supported that mission, And so I think you just start with what are the first steps to build a strong community? What are you about? The whole start with why. Like, why would people want to build community? What do you have a shared value somewhere? What is your shared values? Is there what's your vision? Do you have a vision for, like, what are we communicate? What are we in communion about?
Right. What's my common denominator? I was actually talking to one of the other community leaders, and I won't say which one for privacy, but I was talking to them about, how to help their community grow, because they were feeling like they were lacking. They were feeling like they were lacking some of the, like, getting people to embrace the vision of it. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're doing X, Y, Z. And I said, great, we do that. What else are you doing? Like, what's your why? What's your mission? And I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Well, why are you doing that? What's the feeling that makes you do that? And we finally got to that common denominator of, well, it's my mission, da 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 da, right? It's okay. There's that.
You were like, why didn't you start with that? Yeah,
start with that. And I explained, you say, like, it starts with your why, it starts with your mission. And I explained to someone today, I said, I'm very visual. So, like, I look at, like, what my mission is and this is really silly, but I look at it like there's a star in the sky, right? It's there, but eventually you get a telescope, you get little clouds around it, right? And then you push through it. As long as you kind of just stay focused on what that mission is, eventually the view of it and everything around it becomes just 10 times more clearer. It's just being committed to, like, focusing on that one thing. And the rest takes care of itself. When we talk about growth and leveraging community, and I know there's a specific example about this, and I'm curious if you know what I'm getting at, but you have built businesses really by leveraging your community, by leveraging your people. You've had a lot of amazing opportunities as well. The specific example that I want to bring up actually is when you became the head of inclusion and belonging, right? Tell me about that. Tell me about what gave you that opportunity.
I tell people all the time, I never applied for this. Or sometimes I say, I didn't sign up for this. Because I never, it's not like a job posting that I applied for. It literally was through relationships and not just one person, but there were several people who were, you heard the saying, like people who mention your name in rooms you're not in. There were several people who were doing that unbeknownst to me. I didn't realize I had been career visioned until the very end. I had zero idea that was happening because these were just conversations I had with people that I was in relationship with. My good friend Ogla, Ogla Gatsuma, OP in Orlando, she had an opportunity to speak with Jay Papasan. And instead of talking about herself and the great organizations that she leads and how wonderful she is and what talent she is, she says, you've got to meet my friend Julia. You got to just have a call with her. And so that was one relationship. I don't even remember how they asked me to do the KWU master the family reunion. Yeah, they were like, can you write a 20-minute master class? And KWU asked me that because somebody mentioned that she writes classes. It was literally just people who I had relationships with that were advocating for me in rooms I wasn't even in. I remember I spoke to Smokey one time and he goes, gosh, your name's sure coming up a lot at KWRI. I didn't even know. I said, I didn't even know anybody at KWRI. I was like, by who? When? Like he started talking about this role I was getting and I didn't apply for any job. I had no idea there was a role. I didn't know what he was talking about. And then he realized I didn't know what he was talking about. And he kind of pulled back a little bit like, oh, she doesn't know what I'm talking about. But it's literally because I had really good quality relationships with people, and they were advocating for me in rooms that I had never even been in.
And I think that's a testament, obviously, to your character. And I also think you need to give yourself more credit because I know that you put yourself on councils and committees and you invested years of your life into something you were super passionate about. And I don't want you to say like you didn't apply for it, right? Because every day we're applying for our job.
You're right about that. Yeah, you are right about that. Yeah.
Every day we're applying for our next opportunity, right? And luck is just when opportunity and preparation collide, if you may.
You're 100% correct. They asked me to write a 20-minute master class and memorize it. See, I didn't know anything about teleprompters. So like I wrote it in one day. And the reason they could ask me that is because I have a history of writing classes and teaching classes. So to your point, yes, I've served on a cajillion boards and community, initiatives and all the things. But again, it was all connected to my mission.
Correct.
Yeah, I was serving. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recently said to someone, long story short, what I said was opportunity always comes to people who lead with their mission and their passion.
Absolutely. That's good. Yeah, I like that.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like if you just lead with that, you'll never have to really worry about it because people will gravitate towards you. Now, in competitive industries like real estate can be, like really any business industry can be, it obviously can be hard to embrace collaboration. And I think that especially in the queer space, whether we realize it or not, we're taught a lot of the time to succeed alone. I don't know if you've ever realized that, but we're very survivors, right? And we've had to succeed alone. And what I've learned, at least, is that collaboration is one of the most beneficial things that you can ever do in business, right? How do you cultivate mutually beneficial partnerships that end up helping everyone in a very collaborative space, in a very competitive space, I should say?
Yeah, I you know what, I honestly believe that that's my whole thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What I appreciate more about it is the opportunity for collaboration because we have different perspectives and to come to the table and say, here's what I can offer. What perspective do you have to offer? I think that's the beauty in it. But the reality is what's for you is for you. Like you don't have to hoard information or things. If it was meant for you, it will come for you. If I have something to share, I'm going to share it freely because the same way it came to me, it'll come again. It's not going to harm me to share what I know with you. Now, everybody doesn't see it that way in a competitive environment, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty of collaboration is really just, it's a give and take, right? Like, Hunter, I know you've got something that could help me, but I can't just ask you to keep giving me, deposits and I'm taking withdrawals without also giving you something in return. So it's a give and take. And that's how you succeed in business. It's that whole closed hand thing. Like, how much can I get put into my hands when I've got them closed like a fist like this?
Right.
Versus if I have them open, then I can also receive. And so you have to understand that concept of give and receive. You cannot just hold on to it because that'll be all you have. You've got to open your hands so that you can receive more. But by opening your hands, it means I'm also having to give you something. That's collaboration.
Yeah, you know, it's a lot more fun to succeed with other people than it is to fail alone.
Yeah, I like that for sure. Because you know what? That can easily happen when you are by yourself. Because guess what? You know what you know. But guess what? Everybody on this call knows. Everybody on this call knows something that I don't know. If we all say, hey, share one thing that I don't know, I would leave this call so immensely educated, you know, versus if I stayed in this room by myself, all I know is still all I know.
Yeah, yeah. I read a book, Who Not How, recently. I'm sure you've read it because it's a great book.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
You haven't read it?
My bookshelf has read it.
Your bookshelf has read it. Like that's like half the books behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not Jason Abrams, who's got a stack of books in his background that he's showing off in every Zoom call.
He actually reads those. Did you know that?
He reads them. I know so we're getting off track, but yes, he reads like 3 pages an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Something wild. Good for him. Good for him. But what I was getting at was in Who Not How, it really breaks down how in our society, the education system and everything is like, it really deters us from group efforts. You know, it's like, you got to do your homework alone. It's your responsibility to get this done. It's you. But in the real world, in the business world, it is so collaborative. And there's stories in that book that talk about people who are trying to do it by themselves and failing, and then seeing competition and being upset that competition was doing it. But the reality was they really just needed to join forces and work with each other's strengths to be better.
Definitely.
Now, what daily or weekly habits do you think you follow to maintain strength and strengthen really your professional relationships as we're talking about that collaboration?
You know, I've been trying to figure out a better system since there's so many people, but ultimately, like for example, if I'm in the market center, I absolutely do laps. I at least do, like, I left the market center at 12 o'clock today, but I made 3 laps before I left at 12 o'clock today so I could speak to everybody, ask everybody how family reunion was or how their weekend was. In the car, sometimes if what I have been really implementing is the second somebody comes to my mind, you know, you think of people, I immediately text or call them. I don't think of that person and let it go. I started to think about a DTD2 for like my personal relationship.
That's funny.
But ultimately, I got in the car. There was an agent that used to be with us, Kelly O'Neill. For whatever random reason, I have no idea. She crossed my mind, you know. And I called her. She didn't answer. I just texted her. I said, I didn't want anything. You crossed my mind. I just wanted you to know I was thinking about you, you know. And I didn't have any reason. There's a indie brokerage down the street that's been in business for 20 years. I called up. I know the owner broker. I called him up and was like, hey, can I come over? They also have a bakery attached to their brokerage. And he says, oh yeah, I'll pull some, you know, bakers from you. And I came over and he's like, so I must have been on your list to check off. What do you want? Right.
Wait, what firm is this and where do I sign up? Because I want like, wait, have donuts or?
No, they are fresh baked goods. And he had
oh, wow.
I got there for me to pick what I wanted. But he said, now what do you want? Literally, he's an older guy. He's like, so I must be on some checklist. What do you want? And I was like, honestly, I just thought of you. I didn't want anything. I mean, I did want the baked oatmeal, but like I said, I honestly came here with zero agenda. You're down the street. I just called and came. So just intentionally trying to stay in contact with whoever comes top of mind is my system right now.
Well, you know what I'm hearing a few things. One, don't overcomplicate it. First, you know, don't overcomplicate it. And because it's just like, if you think of somebody, just call them, reach out to them. And then 2, be genuine with it.
Yeah.
Right. Because they will know.
When I have an agenda, by the end of it, I told him the real reason. I was like, honestly, you fall into my demographic of people I'm meeting with. Like, I mean, because he was 70 plus. I'm like, surely you have to be, are you like, can I help? You know, like, but I didn't have anything other than that. I just wanted to come over.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to not have an agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
when it comes to the relationship.
Relationships, right? And again, I guess I did have an agenda. The agenda was I wanted to maintain good relationships.
Oh, I thought you said the big goods.
That too, yeah. But I think that the agenda is sometimes my no agenda is just I want to stay in relationship. I invited a guest to family reunion. I know that he has zero intention of transferring to KW. There would be no reason or value for him to do that based on what he currently does. And I told him when I got him there, I said, hey, listen, full transparency. I just invited you here so we could be in a relationship. So that if something came up someday down the road and I needed some money because he has a lot of money, and I needed some money, or I had some opportunity that I wanted to partner with you on, or maybe I just wanted us to be in a relationship. So it wasn't strange that I called you then. Right. So my whole intention, I was transparent. My whole intention is just to get to know you and you get to know me so that when something pops up, if something ever pops up, and maybe it never will.
Right.
Because we are already in a relationship.
Well, and listen, there are probably people on this call who are like, these two extroverts are out of my league. Like, so, I mean, there are a lot of people who are introverted, right?
Yeah, me.
You think you're introverted?
Oh, I am the most extroverted introvert you will ever meet. This is actually a lot for me. Family reunion is a lot for me. I'm actually an introvert. If I could stay in my room, that's exactly where I'd be. I am not an extrovert by any means. I just play one on TV.
I love that. Well, that's perfect then. I mean, how do you do it? How do you get uncomfortable?
It's intentionality. We are running a business, right?
Right.
So also, if I stayed in my hotel room, all of family, how successful would I really be? Right? So it is intentionally going to the happy hour. But like, for example, our regional happy hour, I thought it was going to just be our region. Turns out it was all KWRI owned regions.
Oh, you're talking about at the swingers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I heard that there were 2,000 people registered and I was like, pass.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. So I showed up. Okay. So I didn't know that.
Well, Julia, next time text me and you'll get to know.
Yeah, it was just super overwhelming because that's honestly too much for me.
Yeah, no, that's too much for me.
So I was intentional with it. I intentionally wanted to make sure that I waited in line with my team so that I spent some time with them. We went in together. I intentionally spoke to some people. I made a couple rounds. I smiled. I took pictures. I did all of the things. And I was probably there for a tops 25, 30 minutes.
Right.
That was too much for me, but I was intentional about the time and intentional with what I did with the time. So when I would meet somebody, I would say, oh, I would love to come to your market center, and can you email me here? Because I can't hold that conversation right now because I'm going to be overwhelmed. So it's intentional. I actually built my entire real estate business on networking. And as an introvert, and the way I did it was E2P. I literally would go to a networking event and say, my goal here is to get 10 email addresses to add to my database.
Right. And for people who don't know what E2P is, entrepreneurial to purposeful.
Yes.
Right. It's not just showing up and talking to 10 people because
I legit don't want to. So yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Fair.
My goal was I'm going to go to this networking event. I'm going to get 10 email addresses to put into my database. That is the activity. The second I got 10, maybe it takes me an hour. Hopefully I can do it in 30 minutes so I can get out of here. But it's to be intentional, and that's how you build a business. And I was like that with anything. I was purposeful. My kids playing basketball, I signed up a couple times to be the team mom. Did I want to be the team mom, Hunter? No. You know what I wanted? Email addresses for my database, right? So I signed up. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's so fascinating about that is I think that like that introvertedness actually gives you a superpower to be more intentional. Like people might think it's a weakness, right? I think people see people who are extroverted like myself. I'm a little extroverted. I'm a little lot. We've talked about that. And they're like, oh, look, he's a connector and he's just got this natural ability to go around and go around. And everyone has to balance themselves, right? Like you can't be the person who hops around to 20 people and never actually gets intentional about the contact. You still have to slow your speed. So there's always, everything in life is going to be a balance. And I think that you were very, I mean, obviously you're very smart, but you were obviously very intentional and always smart to scale that. And I think that we don't talk about that enough. I don't think we, talk about like, hey, what is your intention at this event?
Yeah.
Right. Hudson Warren, do you know Hudson? Yeah. Hudson Warren.
Of
Yeah, of course. Your good friend Hudson. Your good Judy Hudson. Um, he was at the Bold booth or the MAPS coaching booth. And I walked up to him, and me being me, I was like, so what's your goal? How many people are you trying to add to your, thing? He's like, oh, I'm just talking. I was like, Hudson, like, let's get intentional. And so that's great. That's great. So now obviously now always you focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And obviously that's a hard conversation more than ever right now in general, right?
Yep.
How can entrepreneurs ensure, right, that we are creating welcoming and diverse spaces in our networks?
Well, first, let me just start with acknowledging the heaviness that a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of people just don't know what to do and have a weight that they're carrying around given the environment. And I think in this space, particularly because of the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I want to say about that is that's why community becomes all the more important.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, when I left Family Reunion, I started off Family Reunion feeling really sad. I talked about the TED Talk. I was supposed to do my TED Talk at CEO Summit, which is called Why DEI Can't Die, the Ultimate Win-Win. And Gary and Jason were steadfast about me doing it. They never once wavered. I wavered. And I asked if we could pivot because out of fear, attacks that, I was worried about and, things. And I pivoted, and I felt really bad that I had done that when I got there, because Family Reunion was probably the safest environment of communities of people who are like-minded, who love each other, even if we disagree politically.
Right.
That community, the KW community, is a safe community, typically, right?
Typically.
Typically. And so the importance of community. So I said that because by the time it was over on Friday when I left, I did feel very connected and just grateful to be a part of a community of people that are like-minded, that are doing what I'm doing, that believe what I believe. We all still have the same core values of the organization. We all still have the same mission, vision, values, our Y4C2Ts. We believe in that. And that in itself is a community, and it felt so healthy, right?
Yeah.
So this community that you have for your own mental health, find a community. We talked about affinity groups. Find a organization, a community, a group that you can be a part of, where you say, these people accept me for 1000% who I am, and surround yourself with those people. And don't worry about the other people.
I mean, listen, I've been talking to my coach, my business coach this year, and one of the things that me and her talked about was that I have a tendency to want to succeed alone. Again, this is a queer person problem very often. And it's about not just finding community, but also figuring out who your champions are.
Yes. Yes.
Who are your champions? Who are the people who are going to back you up no matter what? And me and you had that conversation before this event. And I was like, you better do that call. I'm coming to back you up. And you still didn't do it. And I'm a little upset.
I didn't do it. And you know what? And also in protection of KWRI and all the other things, it would have definitely been some issues. Gary and Jason were willing to take the hit. I wasn't willing for them to take the hit on my behalf. I said, we can do it other ways. We do it every day, all day long. And what I will also say about that is exactly that community, or any community, is tremendously important. And that showed itself, and is showing itself now more than ever. So how can you create that for somebody else is your question, right?
Yeah.
How can you create a welcoming and diverse? And it's simply starting with you. First of all, are you I can't tell you how committed I am to KW after they were so behind me. They were but also I felt like, well, don't just put me out front, come stand with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that level of commitment, because even I kept saying, even when we were getting threatened with, there's all these losses, they never, ever, ever wavered. And I just thought, man, that lets you know, no, we're for you, we're for you. And that's a big deal. So you be that for somebody else. You be somebody who's like, no, I'm for Hunter. There's nothing you can tell me that, no, I support Hunter. 10 toes. That's what we call in our community. I know 10 toes.
10 toes? Okay, noted.
Yeah, 10 toes down, like I'm 10 toes down. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. For I stand with Hunter, right? 10 toes. But being that for somebody, being a champion for them, even if it's not your group, and that's what's not happening a lot right now in the world. Like maybe that's not your people being marginalized or being mistreated or whatever, but be a person who stands for people. I'm not, that's not my community, but I'm not for you mistreating them just because that's not my community, and so start with that. Be the person where somebody can be themselves and feel safe with you. But that starts with your own ideology about what diversity, equity, and inclusion is.
Yeah.
Are you for including people or are you against including people?
Such a weird question we have to ask ourselves. It's so fascinating. And we'll say that. We'll say it's a fascinating thing. Now, we're in an era, I mean, we're in a great era of social media, though, right? And networking and being able to network at a higher level, probably than we've ever been able to.
Is it though? No, keep going. Yeah.
Is it though? Is it though? I mean, listen, when it comes to social media, I like to be a beacon of light in a sea of darkness, as it may, right? And I know that to many, I think, I had a lot of conversations myself about, or with other people at family reunion is, I don't post anything negative. I'm I stay very, light and goodness that I've always done that. And I think there's a feeling of people want me to be paralyzed, and I've never made that decision, and I won't. And I'm wearing my believe shirt because I just believe that we will win, if you may. Now, in this network and how we balance virtual and in-person relationship building, do you think there's a preference for either? Like, do you think it really matters at this point? Like, do you think any way we can stay connected matters, or how do you balance that?
This is my personal belief. This is just a Juliaism. Okay? I don't know the right or wrong answer, but I believe there's a lot of meaning in person connection and being with people. Part of the reason why I was able to feel empowered and full when I left was we did a lot of hugging. Right?
Yeah.
Like personal touch matters. Like actually being around people matters. Now, a lot of times, in order to have big communities like this, they're going to have to be virtual. It does give us the opportunity to reach people on the other side of the world, and that's awesome. And Hunter, I sure am glad I got to see you in person.
I know.
Like touch you.
And I yelled at you for not doing your TED Talk.
You did. Everybody did. It's okay. It's okay.
I know.
But it was very much so important to have a human interaction. And so likewise, people that work at home a lot, I would encourage you to go into your market center, be around some people. There's energy that people actually give off and bring. I think that's important. Again, especially right now in the environment where a lot of people are challenged with mental health and fear and security. And I think it's important to go to where people, what's that saying? Go to where you're celebrated, not tolerated. I met a young lady at family reunion, and she was saying she came to family reunion because her market center doesn't treat her well. And she wanted to know if it was just her market center or the culture of the organization. So she came to fill it out, and I said, she wouldn't tell me what market center. I said, I don't know what market center you're at, but from what she was saying, girl, leave. You are not a tree. Move. Right? Like if you feel celebrated, right? Go somewhere where you are. It's just not.
I love that. You are not a tree.
Move. Yeah.
You're not a tree. Move. Get out. And I always say, go touch grass. Sometimes it's like, and I told there was a person that I was at a conference with, not a Keller Williams conference, but a different conference in September last year, that was having a hard time fitting in their space. And I told them, I looked at them dead in the face and I said, I want you to hear this. I want you to hear that you are bigger than the space you are standing in. And I think that's something we all have to remember sometimes, because we get bogged down with like everything beating us up and like what's around us and maybe the negativity that's around us, and just get really firm in our tree that we're, our roots that we're standing in, and know where we belong.
Yep.
Was there ever like a mentor that shaped your career?
I used to have a hard time answering that question because I felt like I didn't have a lot of people, who I saw being what I wanted to be or doing it. Not that there weren't great people around. It just I didn't connect with anybody in that way where I was like, oh, I'd love for you to be my mentor. I didn't see it that way. However, I will say my OP, I refer to him as Papa John. I've been with him for all 20 of these 20 years that I've been with KW. He's never told me what to do. I've always just watched and followed and modeled his behavior.
Right.
And so for sure he was a mentor, even when he didn't know he was being a mentor. I will always say the fairest man I've ever met, the man with the most integrity. And I just observed him. I learned from watching him. And recently, I would say that I would see Ogla and Emmerich as mentors because they've gone before me. They've done things before me. And I do want to be like Ogla. She's like the sweetest person and like the most philanthropic person. I mean, she's everything I'm not, right? Like, I'm like, you're so sweet and lovable and all the things that I'm not.
You are. We're gonna work on these affirmations. Okay.
There people have gone before us, right?
Right.
Success leaves clues. And so I've started seeking out now, and maybe even back then there might have been some ego involved, like nobody's doing what I'm doing. Nobody can offer me any mentorship. But there is somebody who's gone before you. There is somebody who's had those challenges before. And tapping into that wisdom of maybe you don't call it a mentor, but seeing that somebody has done it before you and learning from their wisdom. There, as I continue to get older, I am like, you know what? I am wise. Like
Yeah.
you young ladies should listen to me. I have been there before. Yeah.
I think you touch on a good point of sometimes you need to listen more than you speak.
Oh yeah, I just learned that though. That's a recent.
You're like, I just got that.
I just recently picked that up.
Well, it's just be observant, and I think, modeling is important. You can model, just be able to, pick between what's good modeling and bad modeling, right? So observing what you don't like and what you do like and what
Also, though, I would say those people, there are some people in my lives who've served as a mentor because I know exactly what I don't want to be.
Right.
I'm watching you. Not bad people, they're leaders. I don't want to lead like that. I don't want to make you feel like that.
There's a lot of power in that. A lot of power in having the ability to do that, right? It's a skill. It's a skill. So as we prepare to move into Q&A, what are some, and people be prepared, if you have questions, you can start raising your hands. Any final takeaways for people when we want to discuss building a community and finding connections? Like what's one piece of advice? What's the one thing you would want everyone to take away with?
Start with your why. Start with your why and what you're about and what is the vision that you want other people to buy into. There's someone else out there too. In fact, there's a whole community of people who want exactly what you want, and then find your people that way. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's move into private Q&A.
Thanks for listening today, friends. If you enjoyed this call, do not forget to join Queer and Successful, the community on Facebook, as well as register to participate in these calls live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern at successfulcall.com. See you next time. Bye.